In this video, we'll be performing a walkthrough for a central store for group policy on domain controllers. What this accomplishes is it allows you to centrally store your policy definitions on DCs so that they're replicated between all DCs so that you can administer the same templates throughout your Active Directory environment with a repository that is the same for all the domain controllers. It's a pretty quick and simple procedure with just a couple of pointers. The overview of the steps are as follows. First, we create the policy definitions folder on a DC, the domain controller. This policy definitions folder contains all the policy definitions, and it has to be named exactly as is. We'll get into that. Second, we download and install the latest GPO administrative templates. These templates contain all the settings for the latest versions of the operating systems that you want to manage. Next, we have to take those templates, whatever you want to call it, that we downloaded and copy them to the policy definitions folder that we created on the domain controller. That policy definitions folder will be replicated to all the other domain controllers. We'll see that later on. Lastly, we'll just want to validate that those definitions show up in the group policy management console and we're able to edit those. Okay, so let's get into this and move on to the next step. So a little bit more about the central store. The central store is a file location, that policy definitions folder that we talked about, that is checked by the group policy tools, the group policy management console, by default. The group policy tools use all of the ADMX files, those with the .ADMX extension. Those are your policy definition files that are in the central store. The files in the central store are replicated to all domain controllers in the domain. So in the next step, when we actually download the latest templates, you're going to see the ADMX files and the ADML files. The ADMX files are the actual policy templates with all the settings. The ADML files are the language files, and when you download them, they have a folder for each language. In our scenario, we're only going to use and copy the language files for English US. I mean, I guess if you wanted other languages, then you would copy those files as well. But if there's duplicates on the domain controllers already for the language files, it won't copy those. So you'll see that there will be, at the root of the policy definitions folder, just the policy definitions themselves, but then there will be folders for each language. But we're only going to use the English language files, which are in a folder. Each language that you download has its own folder, whereas the policy definitions are just straight up in the policy definitions folder. One of the mistakes that beginners use is to try to copy the language files into the root of the policy definitions folder. You definitely do not want to do that. So where is this actual policy definitions folder contained? Take a look at the link below, the URL below, the UNC below. That's the generic way to describe it. Basically, you're going to replace the contasso.com with your actual AD local domain name. So let's go ahead in my lab environment and see what that looks like. I'm on one of my domain controllers, and it doesn't matter which one. if we go to File Explorer and we simply go to / my domain, and then go to sysfile, then my domain again, then policies. I already have that policy definitions folder there because I've already done it. If you do not have that there already, then you need to create it. If you do have it there, then that means you already have the central store defined and it's replicating to all domain controllers. However, you will need occasionally to update the policy definitions when new builds of the operating systems, like for instance Windows 11 24H2 comes out. You know, very often the policy definitions are updated with new policies and settings, and you'll want to update those on a regular basis as those newer operating system builds come out with the policy definitions. So let's go ahead and open that and take a look at what's inside. Here's what the path looks like on my Active Directory environment. I'll just pause for a second so you can take a look at that and record it. As mentioned earlier, I've only got the language file folder for English US EN-US. If I had other languages, I'd have those other folders in here. That contains my language files. If we took a look in there, you'd see the ADMLs in there. Those are the language file definitions. And at the root of that is all the ADMX files, which are our policy definitions for the whatever latest definitions I have in there. So if we go ahead and open a browser and go to the following URL, this is the guide for the central store, and you could reference this on your own, but we're talking about this whole thing. You don't really need to go through the whole thing if you're watching this video. The only thing I really want to show you on this is that you'll occasionally need to go back here to get the latest policy definitions, the ADMX templates, and the latest one will be on the top right here. Depending on the point in time of the latest release of Windows and when you need to grab those. And I should mention that don't be afraid to grab Windows 11, even if you have Windows 10 or the latest Windows 11 updates, because you don't actually have to have that. It's backwards compatible with all the other operating systems. It just includes the latest policy templates. So in the future, if you upgrade to, for instance, Windows 11 2024, you're prepared for it. It's not like it's going to hurt anything. You should always grab the latest templates. So that's my recommendation. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And that's actually an installer. And then we'll have to, after we download and install, we'll have to go to the install location and copy those files. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the installer automatically launched. We'll go ahead and launch that. Again, we're on the domain controller. That's where we want to be. Any domain controller. Just hit next. Now, it's important at this point to click on browse and copy the location so we don't have to try to find it later where those templates actually downloaded to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this, which is already highlighted. I'm going to hit Control C. I'm going to go into Notepad on the desktop. And I'm going to paste that so I don't forget where that location is. So I can just go to that location through the File Explorer and copy those files to the Policy Definitions folder from the local Program Files folder, where it actually wrote those files earlier. Once I've got that location copied to Notepad, I'm going to hit OK and finish the installer. And then click on Finish. I'm going to open a new File Explorer window. I'm going to copy where it installed those files from, paste it in the window. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the beginning of the ADMX, go all the way down, hold the Shift key, so I get all of those, the ADMX files. I'm going to copy those, and I'm going to go back to my actual central store location, and I'm going to paste and just overwrite all those other ones. These should replicate on your domain controller replication schedule inside of your Active Directory sites and services. You could always force replication if you wanted to, but typically within 15 minutes, and unless you have some sort of other scheduled set with domain controller replication inside of your domain or inside of your forest, then those should be updated within 15 minutes on a default schedule. So we will close this stuff out. And we'll go to the Group Policy Management Console. And again, if this is the first time you're running it, you will see all the administrative templates in there. So we could go to any policy, default domain policy, and just kind of validate and go to administrative templates. And just kind of browse through there. Look, make sure it looks like those administrative templates for Windows 11 24H2 are there. If you wanted to make sure that some of the newer features with, for instance, Windows 11 24H2 policy templates are available, you could just look out the documentation on it and look for those settings in the group policy. But if it's the first time you're running it, well, then you would expect to see all this kind of stuff to validate. Now, I do want to mention that there are other administrative templates outside of the Windows operating systems that you can add to the administrative templates. For instance, Google Chrome, very typical. You want to manage Google Chrome policies. Here's the URL for the instructions on that. I probably will create another video specific to this, but I just want to mention it in this video. This walks you through it. Basically, you download the Google Chrome bundle and unzip the files, and then basically you go to the administrative templates and add the the Chrome.adm template. That's an older template, but it's not an ADMX template, but it still works. So it walks you through it. One thing to point out is that if you want to manage Google Chrome with administrative templates, you should be using Google Chrome Enterprise. So you want to deploy not just a generic personal version, end user version that most users have with Chrome. In an enterprise environment, you need to download and install and deploy the Chrome Enterprise application browser. But this article does walk you through all the steps. So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, I know there's a couple of things in this article that are confusing. So again, I probably will create another video specific to this on how to install the Google Chrome Enterprise browser and how to actually install the templates, because it is a little confusing and their article leaves out a couple stuff. But keep that in mind, that you can add these same templates to administrative templates and manage things outside of Windows. So that's it for this. Hold on for the next part of this video, and then we'll wrap up. Great. I sincerely thank you for taking the time to watch this video so far. I encourage you to like my video, subscribe to my channel, and hit the notification bell for future updates on videos. Feel free also to leave a comment. You can contribute by giving me a coffee through the link below. Patrons get exclusive access to some content. Members get access to all exclusive content, which includes things such as a ton of PowerShell scripts, troubleshooting articles, and how-to guides, etc. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.